Good afternoon. I'm grateful to be able to share this parent training on using incidental teaching or naturalistic environmental teaching for children with autism spectrum disorder or intellectual disabilities. And I hope you enjoy and find it useful. Share my screen. And start my slideshow. Begin. All right, thank you for your patience. So again, this is incidental teaching for children with autism or intellectual disability. So what is incidental teaching? So incidental teaching is an empirically based intervention, or in other words, it's been proven through experimentation that includes teaching individuals, usually an adult and learner. So the adult's the teacher and the learner, the child or individual, the ASD or ID is a learner that uses the environment as a motivation to increase skills. And that's from Blackwell and Stockwell, 2021. An early article by McGee et al. In 1985, so one of the seminal articles, showed the functional relation between the incidental or naturalistic environmental teaching and the increase of language development. So that goes on with the next slide. So what can incidental teaching do? Like what can an individual learn from incidental teaching? So obviously from the McGee et al. Article, it showed that increasing verbal communication is helpful. So this website by Neil Fox in 2017, it shows that this intervention can help with increasing verbal or nonverbal communication skills, such as requesting, and I'll go into more into what we call verbal operants later, or nonverbal communication skills, just social cues, other skills that don't require using your verbal repertoire. And so using verbal skills can be generalized with accessing different things in life, such as getting groceries from the store or asking a teacher for help on an assignment. There's so many things that we do as neurotypical adults that are embedded with and require communication. And by doing that, we can contact these different reinforcers in our and different contingencies in our environments. And that's all through communication. So incidental teaching or training can additionally assist with improving life skills, such as making new friends, later generalizing to potentially making connections for more opportunities. Again, you go into adulthood, you learn how to make friends, make connections, learn to say, oh, I see someone's playing hide and seek. I want to go play hide and seek. That can generalize to, hey, that person has a job. They look like they enjoyed that job. I need a job. Let me go see and network here for this opportunity. Another skill that can be increased based off this intervention is leisure or play skills. So how to use it? So we're going to talk about different things, motivating operations, talk about verbal operants and prompting. I'll break down each one in each uh, principle via slides, but because it's important to know like how each one plays a role in effective incidental teaching training. So it's important, again, it's essential to understand that we need to find the child's motivation or motivating operations. So to briefly explain what these mean, so an EO or establishment operation refers to that the value of a reinforcer is high or the individual is in a state of deprivation towards the reinforcer. So and then AO is an abolition operation, which is opposite, where the value of the reinforcer is lower or the individual is satiated from it. So again, this example here, if a child just had lunch, is not hungry, the food will not function as a high EO. It's no longer a reinforcer. So if we're teaching a child to request more food, that's not going to be as effective because it's not a high value. But if they were hungry, then it functions as a EO and they're motivated for something and then you can use that motivation to teach them how to request food. So verbal operants. Again, like I said, I was going to break these down more. So verbal operants is a set of different forms of communication. So this is from Sundberg and Michael in 2001. They do reference more of like Skinner's because Skinner's one that talked about or taught the world, essentially about these different verbal operants to help with verbal behavior, which is very much embedded in natural teaching. So Amand, in layman terms, so I have like the verbal operant, technical words, terms, and then and then after the colon is the layman terms. So mand is a request or demand. So an example, when a child is motivated for a show, he or she could ask, show please. The show please is the mand. A coic, repeating what was heard. So a parent says book, child repeats book. It's literally echoing. Tact, labeling. So child sees a car, they're in the parking lot, they see a cool car, they're like, car, that's tacting. Interverbal is filling in a phrase or responding with the relevant information that is not corresponding to what was said, like the exact corresponds to what was said. So for example, what's your name? Ian. My name is Ian. So if someone asks me, what's your name? I say Ian, that's an interverbal. Or the fill in the phrase example would be the wheels on the bus go. Child says round and round. That's another example of interverbal. Textual, reading, transcribing, writing. So I can figure those are more self-explanatory. Those are different verbal operants. Again, motivated operations, verbal operants, they will coincide with incidental teaching. So what is the verbal operant's role in incidental teaching? So combine the motivating operation and the verbal operants is what can help us as parents, caregivers, teachers, therapists, etc., BCBAs to utilize the environment to teach you skills. So in addition, it is imperative that we observe or pay attention to when we need to teach different skills or to use verbal operants. So what I mean by that is, say a child is not motivated to sing a song. It's motivated to play with a car. So teaching them demand for play will be more beneficial to teach them to fill in a nursery rhyme. There's so it would be like they're wanting to play with the car, and you say, "Wheels on the bus go round and round," or "Wheels on the bus go," and they look at you. They're gonna be like, "What are you doing?" So it's not the right time to teach interverbal, but an excellent opportunity for them to mand or request to play with the car. So how we teach specific skills, prompting. So excuse me, yeah. So prompting. So with understanding how motivating operations and verbal operants interact to increase skills, the actual teaching. So how we teach the skills within a natural or incidental environment comes from the prompting. They have to see they have to see it from us to learn. So when using prompts, it is crucial to understand that there is a hierarchy with different levels or intrusive prompts that should be systematically and faded appropriately. That was from Nevada Dual Sensory Impairment Project website. The levels that start from least intrusive to most intrusive. So these, again, I'm starting with independent, that's least intrusive, and then so on. So independent, gesture, indirect verbal, direct verbal, model, partial physical, full physical. So continue prompts here. So independent is the end goal, but the prompts will be required more likely than not to teach a novel or new skill. So gesture is literally just pointing. So when it's time to pick up toys, and it's crucial to understand too that you're not supposed to use words. So if you do verbal and gesture, that's technically an embedded prompt of verbal plus gesture. But if we're just using gesture, because going back real quick, if you do gesture and verbal, you're technically not at the lowest level of hierarchy. So gesture is it's meant to be just used without any kind of verbal prompt. So if you're cleaning up toys and you're putting toys away, the kid's kind of looking at you, just pointing at the car that needs to be picked up, put in the toy box. Just the pointing, if that increases or evokes a response for the child's response to pick up the car part of the way, that gesture is the prompt that was effective to use. The actual pointing is gesture. So indirect is this form of prompt does require verbal, but it's not it hence the name indirect. It's not supposed to be a clear-cut answer. It's more like a hint. So if a child is trying to help open a bag of chips or goldfish, whatever, you say an indirect prompt could be, "What do you need?" You're technically not telling them. You can say open. You're saying, "What do you need?" It's the hint that they do need to say something. They need to request help. Another form of indirect could be, "That looks hard to do. That looks really tough." If that evokes a response for them, and back it up real quick, evoking is a term I'm using to, if that increases the chance that they're going to say, "Help, please," then that indirect verbal prompt served as an effective prompt. Direct prompt, next level of hierarchy, direct prompt. This is when you do use your verbal voice to give them the answer they need to say. So their sibling is trying to, sibling wants a turn for a toy. If the child looks like you observe the child is motivated to keep playing with the toy, you can tell they don't want to share. You say instead of the child screaming, you say you can tell them not yet, or ideally just without saying you can say you tell them quote not yet, so they know that they need to say not yet to get access um to escape their sibling momentarily to play. Obviously, sharing is a different skill that can be used within sit-down teaching, but for the purpose of communicating, they don't want to share yet. That's what you would do. Modeling, literally just showing them. Again, no verbal needs to be, we're not embedding or combining any type of verbal prompt or physical prompt with the model. The model needs to just serve on its own, which includes no voice, and you're showing them. So a great example of this is how to play. Like, because as mentioned from previous slides, that instead teaching is not just used for increasing communication or social skills, is to increase play skills. Some children with ASD and intellectual disabilities may not know how to appropriately play with toys, so you're showing them. That's a model prompt. If that evokes a response to play appropriately, then that would work. uh, that'd be effective model prompt. The last prompt, so there's two more technically, but they're both physical prompts. Partial physical prompts are when you literally use part of your body, usually your hands, to guide them to do the target behavior you want them to do. Partial refers to your hands are under their elbows, and then hand over hand is the physical prompt. That's usually very common, like teach them how to wash their hands. You usually have to do hand over hand. So prompts are awesome. With that said, it is possible and unfortunately pretty common for a child or individual to be prompt dependent. So it's important that we fade the prompt. So as your child learns improving the skill, make sure as we feed these out, we need to follow the right hierarchy. So for example, let's say your child started with a gesture, they require a gesture. Next time, after you do some gesture prompts, couple times, make sure you give that space for them to do it independently. If you started with the direct prompt, direct verbal, then next time try it fade out to indirect, fade out to gesture, excuse me, indirect, um, then gesture, yeah, then so they can be independent. Now this is common as well, where people may ask, well, they did it independently one day, and now they're expecting me to do it for them another day. That is a good inquiry of like how do we go about that? And it's important to recognize that the independence is the end goal. So if they do have shown that they can do it independently, we need to check their motivation if they don't want to do it independently. So and then we offer different reinforcers that are contingent or accessible contingent on the response within their repertoire or skill set. So for example, yeah, let's say that they open the bag of chips by themselves. You've seen that they can do it. And one day there's like, no, you open it for me. You do it. And they're kind of being sassy, whatever. They don't, in the moment yeah, they're just not motivated. So they may not be as motivated for chips um, in that moment until you say, hey, great. I'm not going to open it for you. you yeah, you got it. So you're fading out any kind of prompt that basically you don't want to do for them. And so if their motivation is intact with really wanting the chips, they will do it. So it's just a matter of saying, or another example is like putting on shoes. If they know how to put on their sandals by themselves, hey, okay, like you know how to do it by yourself. Oh, it's gonna go outside. Well, gotta get your shoes on. So like those natural kind of presentation of contingencies or conditions of you want to go outside, you gotta get your shoes on it, and then that can motivate them. So again, always check the motivation if it seems like that they're regressing with their skill set. So yeah. And last thing I wanted to say is make it fun. Out of all the different studies that have been done regarding incidental teaching, the main objective is to make it fun for the child. Because from a brief, from just a brief back background of Lovos, like initially the ABA was a lot of discrete trial training or just like kind of like direct instruction at the table, and it kind of gradually and then the field of applied behavior analysis, they gradually recognized we need something more natural and more fun. That's what this is all about. So the more reinforcing we allow the environment to be, the higher likeliness we'll have to allow the child to contact those different reinforcers in their environments. So, and so I appreciate you listening to this video. Here's my references.